I'm Carolyn Holzman, and this is Confessions of an SEO. This episode is sponsored by Ahrefs. If you're new, Confessions is not an interview show. It's not an hour long, and it's definitely not repeating Google guidelines, which you can read yourself. Confessions is where I share tested and observed SEO research and conclusions about data that you're not going to get anywhere else. There is SEO and marketing in here, but it's sometimes not always obvious, and how much you get out of it is going to depend on your level of expertise and experience in the field. This is a short form, one-way chat about everything in SEO and marketing that isn't a trick or a hack to get to the number one spot on page one. There is nothing in here that could be categorized as fast food SEO, which frankly you can find pretty easily anywhere. I don't believe that getting to page one safely and sustainably is done with hacks or tricks. As SEOs, we need to stretch our understanding of search engine updates, especially when it comes to helpful content, and understand thresholds. A page with just an H1 header and 300 words is only going to work if you're Google in terms of getting it indexed and ranking for something. Expect plain talk here in Confessions with no engineering mumbo jumbo, and for our time together to be around 15, maybe 17 minutes. All of us have work to do because SEO isn't going to get it done itself. Welcome to Season 5, Episode 21 of Confessions of an SEO. Thought today I'd share some of my thinking on an article that appeared on Medium. It was written by the founder of the Australian magazine and news publication. His name is Luke Wiseman, and in it he details a very rough ride through the past few years dealing with helpful content, and after estimating costs and time to the tune of $200,000. And the jury is still out if anything is going to work. Now I'm titling this, the demise or rise of DMARGE. Extra credit if you can name the movie I'm thinking of when I said that. It's not unrelated to last week's episode about table of content links. Some may know what those are. We also refer to them often as jump links. And well, I got a little happy last week when I learned that it appears Google agrees with me about table of content links, if they are helping or hurting your presence in Google. Not gonna lie, but part of what made me so happy was also I've been working since the beginning of the year to help develop a WordPress plugin that would be helpful to sites that want to use table of contents. Now, you can find last week's episode pretty easily. It's on confessionsofanseo.com, Season 5, Episode 20. I'll put the link in the description. And again, I'd like to thank Ahrefs for being the sponsor for this episode. This week, I'm sharing about Ahrefs' rank tracking capabilities and reports. And it's where you can really visualize SEO progress by keyword, by share of voice, average position traffic, and ranking positions. It's all great ways to demonstrate these reports for your SEO clients or for your own business. There are multiple ways to slice and dice the data to find answers to your questions, not just how well you're doing, but also where there may be room for improvement. We know Google's not shy to change what features they include in the blended search results, and you can get clues where you might want to put a little more attention content-wise and dial it in just a little more. My favorite feature is the comparison capability between, let's say, the business I'm working on and its competitors. So, for instance, you can see how you're stacking up against them for positions traffic and those search page result features. This rank tracking is part of every Ahrefs plan. Check it out. There's a link to the rank tracking features in the description. Now, this past week, that article I mentioned that appeared on Medium, it's titled My 3-Year, 200,000 Plus Google Helpful Content Recovery Journey. And it goes, is the quiet warning for news publishers everywhere. You have to be the judge of whether or not it's worth to subscribe to Medium. If you just want to do a month, it's $5, but I think it's a great article to read. So you probably guessed by now that I spent some time on this week. Mostly, I kind of read it to see if I could identify in the words that were used in the article about what they experienced and compare it in my mind to what I know what the data of a helpful content hit looks like. And frankly, it was all there. The first paragraph, they start saying, the site was not penalized. Quote, it just gradually lost visibility. Check. Traffic dropped from over 800 million monthly uniques to 300,000. Yes, check. The drop in traffic. That's a lot of traffic to lose. And that's about right in terms of the percentage. They weren't publishing spam or gaming. They said they followed, quote, every update from John Mueller, waited for clarification from Danny Sullivan, listened to Barry Adams telling publishers to cut harder, and absorbed Glenn Gabe's detailed breakdowns of visibility drops, unquote. Going further, quote, everyone had theories and solutions. Most commentary only confirmed what we suspected. We were quietly pushed out, and the technical SEO changes alone wouldn't save us. They said they hired Lily Ray, $600 an hour, not for a full audit, but a list of recommendations. And so far, nothing from the recommendations made any difference to their relationship with Google search. They pruned content, deleted tag pages, tested Core Web Vitals, hired subject matter experts, cited everything, took out any reference to content that was based on other publishers, their content, reduced the number of topics, took out a lot of ads. Yay. Changed the permalink structure. Ouch. Competitor analysis, publishing speed, how many pages they publish a day over a period of time. And the final results, and I really kind of have to quote Luke on this, after 2.5 years, thousands of hours, and more than $200,000, we reached a difficult but honest conclusion. Google does not operate with a single set of rules. Boom. All right, this is definitely the crux of the matter. And before I take you there, I just wanted to share my own analysis based on my validated hypothesis of helpful content. Now, I speak pretty casually about, charts on these types of sites after they get wrapped up into the helpful content hooks. It looks like the EKG of someone exercising that slowly flatlines. These are not my sites, but I don't, I guess my casualness when I say something like that doesn't mean that I don't feel the pain involved, because it is a sad situation. One of the things that's important to me about doing this podcast, not this one, but overall, is, I keep doing it because Google is never going to tell us that it's not us, that it's them, right? We're never going to hear from an authoritative source that it's not our fault. Get that? And as an SEO in the industry, I'm here to tell you that if you've lost visibility, for example, because of table of content links, that is not your fault. If last week when I went through that, Google blamed it on the use of table of contents, the WordPress plugins, that it confused their bots. So now I also want to balance that out, obviously, and say I will not blame Google if there's something else on a site that was, let's say, the fault of the site. I used to watch this TV show called House, and it was about this asshole doctor who would solve the unsolvable medical cases in unorthodox ways. I think it's in syndication if you want to find it. But in each case, the patient was never suffering from one thing. It was never one thing. It turned out to be the combination of seemingly unconnected symptoms that allowed him to form an unusual diagnosis. Now, I found direct evidence in regards to this site. So it was the pages on the site and those that were in the Wayback Machine but no longer on the site. Yes, table of contents was used and likely used liberally throughout the pages. Yes, they had annoyingly intrusive pop-up advertisements to monetize their publication. Yes, they had some skinny pages, a couple of hundred words, only an H1, and frankly, something better suited for social media than a website. But their DEMISE was so grave that I suspected there had to be more under the hood. Now, I don't have access to their Search Console data, but I did set a timer for 3 hours to kind of go through their site. And I pretty much concluded they were fooked. Pardon my Irish. After running a full report of all the live pages that were findable, I grabbed Google LLM. Now you may think, why that? Why not Claude or Gemini? Well, I really only wanted answers based on the data that I'd provided. No hallucinations. If you're not familiar with that term, when AI doesn't have an answer or thinks something up on its own would make a better example, it would fill in the blanks rather than say, I don't have that. Google LLM only uses the resources that you provide it with. And I thank my friend and colleague Terry Power for demonstrating its podcast features, which led me to use this for some data diving. You see now why I had to set a timer. So I loaded up all the data and started to ask questions to see if the hypothesis I had about their content was substantiated. Well, here's what I got back. Based on the data and the sources provided, your observation about DMARGE covering certain topics multiple times from different angles appears to be supported. There isn't necessarily direct overlap where the exact same information is repeated, but rather covering popular topics, subjects, from different angles, in different years or in different types of articles. Another example, this is me talking, that I used was the topic of Rolex Daytona watches. They talk about a lot of watches on this site. And kind of like this was based on cursory site data, right? So it wasn't like every possible bit of data on every page. It was, the kind of stuff that's easy to get. And I was not reading the articles. I was just looking at the SEO parts that are out there, that easy to scrape. So here's one of the responses. These sources demonstrate that the Rolex Daytona is a recurring topic discussed in the context of specific industry events, watches and wonders in different years, and included in thematic roundup like racing watches. While they all relate to the Daytona, the focus and specific information is presented differently. Now, me again. I typically use home services for this example of multiple pages on the same topic. Likely, this is never deliberate, right? It's always inadvertent by writers and with different keyword strategies. But clearly, there was not enough differentiation between Rolex Daytona watches and Rolex Daytona racing watches. There's a lot of modifiers in there. But here's the crux that I alluded to previously. If this site were seen by Google as a news site, they would never have gone through this DEMISE. I said this for a while as well. News sites, their data shows that they're exempt from the helpful content rules. Hence, Luke is correct. Now, I put that little gem together and published this in my helpful content analysis. It's still for sale. It's priced quite reasonably for it coming out of a year of daily research and testing. It's like $55. You can find it on Gumroad. You can find it on American Way Media. Google does not operate with a single set of rules when it comes to the helpful content. So here's what I think I'd recommend. get DMARGE set up as a news site. I found one article in Google News. It's one they published this week. So it may not stay in there, or maybe, this article will make it clear that the best answer is for Google to categorize it as a news site. News site, no helpful content rules, no problem. Capiche? So, is this the demise of DMARGE, or is it the rise of DMARGE? Well, we don't know yet. Luke, I will put my Stripe link in the description should you appreciate the value received. I am wishing you all good luck as you move forward. That's it for me this week. Thank you for being a listener. Thank you to Ahrefs for being the sponsor of this episode. Check out the link in the description and start using the rank tracker to see where you're standing in comparison to your competitors. If you want to get advance notice of when the helpful content plugin will be available, get over to carolynholzman.com, fix the canonical scoring in helpful content. I will put a link in there. Check out Indexilla. It's my indexing platform to get content and backlinks indexed completely within Google's terms of service. Save for your money site. You can find it at indexilla.io. If you need help assessing your site's performance into particulars about what is ailing it, you can find me on LinkedIn or American Way Media's Facebook page. If you're like me, like to geek out on real-time Search Console data, check out Crawl or No Crawl on Substack. See you next week for SEO conversations, observations, and testing stories. If you have questions about today's topic, please reach out. Text your question to confessions at 512-222-3132. Thanks again, and until next week, I'll see you in the SERPs.